Hello, it's Tommy. Today I want to show you some verses in the King James where the word corn is used. This is my King James. The first verse is Psalms 78:24, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the corn of heaven. Now, I'll also be showing you these same verses in the Interlinear and the New King James. The next verse is Matthew 12:1. At that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. Mark 2:23. And it came to pass that he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. Luke 6:1. And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first that he went through the cornfields, and his disciples plucked the ears of corn and did eat. And the last verse I'll show you is John 12:24. John 12:24. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone, but if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. A corn of wheat. Okay. Let me show you the interlinear next. Psalm 78:24. And he rained on them manna to eat, and he gave them grain of the heaven to them. And he gave the grain of the heaven to them. So that was grain rather than corn. Matthew 12:1. At that time on the Sabbath, Jesus went through the grain fields, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck ears and to eat. Grain fields. Luke 6:1. And it happened on the second chief Sabbath, he passed along through the sown fields, and his disciples plucked the heads and were eating, rubbing with the hands. So this one says sown fields. John 12:24. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless the grain of wheat that falls into the earth dies, it remaineth alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Okay. Now I'll show you the New King James. Psalm 78:24. Had rained down manna on them to eat, and given them of the bread of heaven. Bread of heaven. Matthew 12:1. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and his disciples were hungry and began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. Mark 12:23. Now it happened that he went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and as they went, his disciples began to pluck the heads of grain. And John 12:24. Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain. I just really don't remember corn being used. And I've heard numerous sermons about the disciples walking through the grain fields on the the Sabbath day and eating the grain. And most of the time I had my King James Bible with me when I was at church, and I just feel like I would have seen the word corn somewhere along the way. Now, Bible Gateway, it says corn is 186 times, but not all of these are corn. Some of them are corner. Now, I tried to use those quotation marks. Let's see. But it still put up corner and cornet. So not all 186 are corn. But there's corn and wine, corn and wine. Joseph gathered corn for to buy corn, sacks with corn, carry corn. I mean, there's one of the corners I was referring to, but stacks of corn, standing corn. I just think let me show you a couple more of the pages here. There's some corners. All right, there's a corn, part of the beaten corn. Mayest gather in thy corn, tithe of the corn, began to put the sickle to the corn, corn and wine, standing corn, treadeth out the corn. Leave thee either corn, wine, or oil. I mean, there's a lot of corn in here. I'm sure it's more than half of the 186. Parched corn. Parched corn. Wouldn't that be popcorn? Land of corn and wine. This corn blasted before it be grown up. Okay, there's a cornet. A couple cornets. There's another corner. There's just a lot of corns. Might buy corn. Part of the money and the corn, the wine, and the oil. Tithes of the corn, tithe of the corn, a shock of corn. You know, I don't know. I just really don't remember the word corn being used. But I'd like to know what you guys remember. Do you remember corn in your King James? But seriously, guys, we are in the end. Please get your hearts right with Jesus. I mean, we are seriously as in the days of Noah, and this is not the time to be flirting with the world just to see how much sin we can get away with and still make into heaven, because unless you are repenting, the answer is 0. Any unrepented sin will block us from heaven. So guys, please get your hearts right with Jesus. I mean, we're seriously in the end, guys. All right. Thanks for watching. Till next time.